Every year, American gardeners spend billions on seeds they are legally forbidden to save and replant. Hybrid varieties were engineered to produce sterile offspring after a single season. Meanwhile, 4 seed-saving techniques used by traditional farmers for thousands of years can break that cycle permanently. The seed industry makes sure you never learn them. For 12,000 years, every farmer on Earth saved seed. It was not a technique. It was the definition of farming. Communities built living seed libraries adapted to their exact climate and soil. The Cherokee carried beans over a 1,000-mile forced march. Missouri farmers preserved a watermelon for 50 years after every catalog dropped it. Then in the 1930s, breeders discovered they could cross 2 parent plants to produce vigorous offspring with higher yields. But the seeds those plants produced would not grow true. The next generation came back stunted, deformed, or sterile. If you wanted the same results, you bought new seed every year. By 2005, Monsanto paid $1.4 billion for Seminis, a company that controlled 40% of the American vegetable seed market. You were no longer buying a product. You were renting one. A 1983 study found 93% of the vegetable varieties in the 1903 USDA catalog had vanished from commercial availability. The knowledge was not lost because it failed. It was lost because it competed with a system that needed you back every spring. Here are the 4 seed tricks they sued farmers to stop. Trick 1. The tomato fermentation method. Somewhere in the history of every tomato-growing culture, farmers discovered that the seeds inside a ripe fruit are coated in a gelatinous sac that actively prevents germination. That gel contains compounds nature uses to stop seeds from sprouting inside the fruit itself. For thousands of years, farmers solved this problem the same way. They let the seeds rot. The science is lactic acid fermentation, the same biological process behind kimchi and sauerkraut. When you scoop tomato seeds and pulp into a jar and let them sit for 3 to 4 days, beneficial lactobacillus bacteria dominate the solution. They break down the germination inhibitors in the gel coating and simultaneously kill seed-borne pathogens, including tomato mosaic virus. Research published in Hort Science documented that fermented seeds achieved 92% germination after 5 years of storage, compared to 37% for seeds that were simply washed and dried. The method requires nothing but a glass jar, a paper towel, and patience. Scoop seeds and pulp from a fully ripe heirloom tomato. Add a 1/4 cup of water. Cover loosely. Wait 3 to 4 days until a layer of mold forms on the surface. Add water. Stir. Viable seeds sink. Dead seeds and pulp float. Pour off the waste. Rinse in a sieve. Dry on a paper plate or coffee filter. Never use a paper towel. Seeds bond permanently to the fibers. Store in a paper envelope in a cool, dry place. Viable for 4 to 6 years. This only works with open-pollinated heirloom varieties. Cherokee Purple, a Tennessee heirloom grown for over 100 years. Brandywine, preserved by Amish farmers since the 1880s. Black Krim, a Russian variety rediscovered in the 1990s. Yellow Pear, a European heirloom documented for over 400 years. These breed true indefinitely. Monsanto's hybrid tomatoes are engineered as crosses that cannot reproduce faithfully. Their second generation produces deformed or sterile offspring. That is not a defect. That is the business model. The fermentation method makes heirloom seed saving so reliable that it eliminates the need for commercial purchases entirely. That is why you were never taught it. Trick 2. The bean drying and storage method. In 2007, a 74-year-old Indiana farmer named Vernon Bowman decided to save money on his late-season soybean planting. Instead of buying expensive patented seed, he purchased commodity soybeans from a local grain elevator, beans sold for animal feed. He knew most would contain the Roundup Ready gene because nearly every farmer in the region used Monsanto seed. He planted them, sprayed his fields with glyphosate, harvested the survivors, and saved seed for the following year. He did this for 8 consecutive seasons. Monsanto sued him for $84,456. The case reached the Supreme Court. In 2013, all 9 justices ruled against the farmer. The legal precedent was devastating. Even seeds purchased as commodity feed cannot be legally replanted if they contain patented genetic material. But here is what the ruling could not touch. Heirloom beans predate patent law by centuries. Cherokee Trail of Tears beans were carried by the Cherokee people during the 1838 forced march from the Smoky Mountains to Oklahoma. Hidatsa shield figure beans are a centuries-old indigenous variety from the Plains tribes. Mostola wild goose beans were discovered inside the crop of a wild goose in 1865 Pennsylvania. None of these contain patented genetics. None can be seized, licensed, or restricted. Beans are the single easiest crop for a beginning seed saver. They self-pollinate, meaning zero risk of cross-contamination. One plant produces 50 to 200 seeds. Properly dried, they remain viable for 5 or more years. Leave pods on the plant until they turn brown and rattle when you shake them. Shell by hand or stomp in a pillowcase. Spread on a screen for 1 to 2 weeks in a dry space. Test dryness with a bite. If your teeth dent the bean, it needs more time. Store in a glass jar with a food-grade silica packet or dry rice grains as desiccant. Label every jar with variety and year. Dried beans look identical across varieties, and you will lose track within a season if you do not. The Supreme Court decided that corporations can own the genetics inside a living seed. It did not decide that every seed on Earth contains corporate genetics. The distinction is the entire point. Trick 3. Cross-pollination prevention. In 1997, a Canadian canola farmer named Percy Schmeiser discovered that genetically modified canola from neighboring farms had blown onto his land. He never purchased Monsanto seed. He never signed a licensing agreement. He had been saving his own canola varieties for decades. But Monsanto tested his fields, found their patented gene in his crop, and sued him for patent infringement. The case reached the Supreme Court of Canada. In 2004, the court ruled 5-4 against Schmeiser. The precedent chilled farming communities worldwide. Even if you never buy patented seed, your heirloom varieties can be legally contaminated if pollen from neighboring genetically modified crops drifts onto your land. You did not invite it. You did not want it. The law says the patent holder still owns the genes. This is why cross-pollination prevention is not optional for serious seed savers. It is legal protection as much as agricultural technique. For cross-pollinating crops like squash, cucumbers, peppers, brassicas, and corn, you have 2 options. Isolation means planting only one variety per species, or separating varieties by 800 feet or more. The other option is the paper bag method. Watch for unopened female flowers the night before they bloom. Tape paper bags over both male and female flowers. The following morning, transfer pollen from male to female with a small brush. Rebag the female flower. Tie a colored ribbon on hand-pollinated stems. Save seeds only from ribbon-marked fruits. The detail most channels miss entirely is that sweet peppers and hot peppers cross-pollinate freely. Save seeds from a bell pepper grown next to a habanero, and next year's plants can produce fruit that is unexpectedly and aggressively spicy. The same applies across the squash family. Zucchini, pumpkin, butternut, and acorn all cross with each other. Broccoli, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts are all the same species, and will cross into unrecognizable offspring without isolation. Percy Schmeiser spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting a corporation that sued him for something the wind did. The paper bag method costs nothing and guarantees the seeds you save are genetically identical to the parent plant. Trick 4. The wet seed method. In 1926, the Peter Henderson Seed Company released a watermelon called Sun, Moon, and Stars. Dark green skin covered in bright yellow spots, one large moon-shaped blotch and speckled foliage, unlike any other melon. It was popular through the 30s, then vanished from every commercial catalog. For nearly 50 years, the variety was presumed extinct. In 1980, Kent Wheely, co-founder of the Seed Savers Exchange, mentioned the lost melon on a Missouri television show. A farmer named Merle Van Doren was watching. He picked up the phone. The melon was not extinct. He had been growing it for decades, saving seed every season using the wet seed method his family practiced for generations. That variety exists today because one farmer never stopped saving seed from his own harvest. The wet seed method applies universally to every crop that produces seeds embedded in fruit flesh. Cucumbers, melons, squash, and pumpkins all require it. Choose a fruit that is fully ripe or slightly overripe. Scoop all seeds with pulp into a glass jar. Add water to cover by 1 inch. Ferment 3 to 5 days at room temperature. Add more water. Stir vigorously. Viable seeds sink. Pulp and dead seeds float. Pour off the waste. Rinse through a fine mesh sieve. Spread on paper plates. Never paper towels. Dry 1 to 2 weeks. Store in paper envelopes inside glass jars with a desiccant. Fermentation kills seed-borne pathogens, increases germination rates by 30 to 50% compared to fresh seeds, and removes the germination inhibitors in the seed coating. It is not optional. It is the mechanism that makes seed saving work. Seminis controlled 40% of the American vegetable seed market when Monsanto acquired them. Their hybrid varieties produce seeds that cannot be saved. Heritage varieties were dropped from catalogs because they bred true, because they could be saved, because they could not be patented. Sibley squash, an 1840s heirloom, was removed from commercial catalogs by 1990. Boothby's blonde cucumber, a 100-year-old Maine variety, is available from no seed companies. Galou des Ines, a French heirloom pumpkin with the highest sugar content of any variety tested, survives only through home seed savers using exactly this method. But it survived. The knowledge never vanished into patent filings or sealed courtroom records. While the seed industry consolidated into a $90 billion system controlled by 4 corporations, a quiet network of seed libraries, indigenous seed keepers, and stubborn gardeners preserved these techniques through generations of deliberate erasure. The Seed Savers Exchange, founded in 1975, now maintains over 20,000 endangered varieties and has distributed more than 1 million seed samples worldwide. The Cherokee Nation operates a tribal seed bank in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, preserving 24 heritage crops and distributing them free to any Cherokee citizen. Moon and Stars watermelon grows in gardens today because Merle Van Doren never stopped saving seed. Cherokee Trail of Tears beans feed families because the Cherokee people carried them through 1,000 miles of forced displacement and never let the variety die. Brandywine tomatoes still produce because Amish families fermented and saved those seeds for 140 years without a licensing agreement. The Supreme Court ruled that Monsanto can own the genes inside a soybean. It did not rule that they own the 12,000-year-old practice of saving seed from your own harvest. The distinction is not subtle. It is the foundation of food sovereignty. Start with beans. They self-pollinate, multiply massively, and require no fermentation. Then move to tomatoes. Once comfortable, protect cross-pollinating crops with the paper bag method. Finally, master the wet seed method for cucumbers, melons, and squash. Within 2 seasons, you will never need to buy seed for these crops again. The seed industry profits from dependency they engineered at the genetic level. These 4 techniques break that cycle permanently. The knowledge was never lost. It survived in the hands of farmers who never needed a patent to grow food. If this seed was finally freed for you, subscribe to Hank's gardening journey and hit the bell. Every like and every share plants one more seed they cannot control. The next one breaks free soon.